Thank you so much for being here. I'm actually just going to switch our slideshow, and I'm going to pass it over to Jane. One moment.
Hey. Thanks so much, Kate. And I just want to say a quick thank you from all of us for being a terrific leader on this project. So this crazy time has brought into focus how important physical touch and presence is, but it has also made us understand and respect this digital space that we are sharing. And with that feeling, I'm going to share our digital land acknowledgement. It's important to be aware of the history of the land we occupy. As we are in virtual space, Hold will be offering a digital land acknowledgement before we begin. All the participants are invited to share the land they are zooming in from. And if you are tuning in via Facebook or YouTube, you are invited to do the same. This is from Adrian Wang of Spiderweb Show. Since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let's take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many indigenous communities. Even the technologies that are central to the art we make leave significant carbon footprints, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect indigenous peoples worldwide. We invite you to join us in acknowledging all this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good use of this time, and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and as allies.
Okay, I wanted to give you guys a short
Masha, I think that we're having a little bit of a problem with your audio.
Oh no.
Maybe just try.
Any better? Great. I just wanted to give everyone a short overview of our plan for this evening session. So we're going to introduce you to the platform, the website, and walk you through it a bit. After that, we're gonna do a meet and greet with the designers that contributed to the projects that are already showcased on there and hear a little bit from them about their thoughts on the future of our fair art form. We're going to take a small pause after that to reset, and then we'll do a panel discussion with the creative team of Howard's End, and then wrap it up. So I'm going to hand it over to Kate to tell us about this thing that we've all been doing.
Thank you, Masha. So hi all. We'll do a proper full introduction with everyone when we get to the meet and greet, but my name is Kate Freer. I'm she, her pronouns. I am zooming in from Lenape-Kohing, the ancestral homelands of the Lenape and many other indigenous peoples from time immemorial and today and through the future. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this wild project that we're coming together to celebrate. The folks that you see on the screen right now are some of the sort of stewards of that space that we had this idea at the very beginning of the pandemic, right after sort of this rollout of shutdowns to really uplift the work of these amazing designers and not to create sort of a memorial of that necessarily, but a space that celebrates all of this amazing work. So hold on one second, and I will share a little bit about that. Like I said, this space is really meant to celebrate creative teams, as it actually says on the site, you know, everything that goes into that collaboration, the rigors, the joys, the deep creativity, the innovation, and like the world building of that. And we're hoping that this space becomes a place where you can actually see those designs in communication with each other and really look at this very unique moment in arrested development. And we know that theater is meant to be shared with a wide public, which is one thing that we're doing here, but we know that also it can never replace being together in space, in physical space. And we know that the landscape of theater and art and the world is going to be changing immeasurably. So we'll see more platforms like this, more innovation in design, more innovation in storytelling, and we're so thrilled to be a part of that. With that, I will pass it off to Mel.
Hi, I'm Mel, she, hers pronouns. I'm here to share with you about the values of this platform and community that we are in together. And yeah, I guess here we go. So community, we are a constantly evolving community spanning many spaces, identities, skills, and experiences. We lift each other up at every opportunity. Diverse aesthetics and perspectives. We celebrate the multiplicity of lived experiences and diversity of aesthetics that intersect to envision new worlds both on stage and off. Anti-racist and anti-oppressive practices. There is a deep history of structural racism and oppression woven through society and the theater industry. We strive to create a space that celebrates each individual's full humanity. Shared resources and mutual growth. Shared knowledge and resources lead to a healthier and more sustainable field for all. Collaboration. At the core of design is collaboration. Not everyone knows or can do everything, but together we can accomplish anything. We are interdependent and stronger for it. And yeah, thank you for listening to that. And I guess I'll hand us off to Deb next to talk about the goals.
Thanks. I'm Deb, she, her pronouns. So this website's got a couple goals, but one of the main goals is to serve the design community. It's not that we don't want to serve everybody, but this is a space that is really built and made for designers and to celebrate all aspects of the collaborations that designers have with one another within design teams. And this is also conversation with management between shops and with artisans, which we couldn't do these shows without. Interactions with creative influences throughout the process from, you know, all the way from conception, those first ideas, those tiny little sketches, those napkin drawings, all those things that we work out in meetings, conception all the way to strike when we take it down, except that none of our shows have made it to strike. And so here we are. So let's celebrate what we've got. And I'm going to pass it off to Alex, who's going to give an awesome tour of the site itself.
Hey, I'm Alex Basco-Koch, he, him pronouns, and I am so excited that I get to share our fancy new website. Here it is. Gorgeous, super cool, so proud of all of it. When you come on in, you can check out a lot of the productions that have submitted their work. We'll talk about that in a moment. That's very important. But as we're talking through things today, talking about our values, our goals, we reiterate that here.
Alex, I think before you get started, I'm seeing the YouTube site right now, so I think you need to switch the window that you're sharing screen
no.
Technology. Still.
What do we have now?
Still a Facebook.
Guys, well, I'm excited about Facebook too.
We're live.
Yay.
How many screens do you have in front of you right now? Is it 5? Is it 4?
5.
Yeah, there we go.
Guys.
I have been in so many processes together. It's so fun.
Look, I'm a projection designer. Computers aren't really my thing. This is our website. It's not Facebook, but it might be a little bit cooler. We've got our landing page. We've got, obviously, talking about tonight's launch. This will be updated with new, information, new events as they come. A lot of what we're talking about right now, the values, the goals, what this website is for, is reiterated. And also, of course, this is about the designers. So we list all of the designers we're featuring. And you can take time, sit with the production, sit with the artwork from those productions. And then we're highlighting some media pieces, some interviews, ways to keep the conversation going, ways to just sort of feel involved, take some time, hear some thoughts, see what's going on. And after you've exhausted yourself on Hold, this is a really cool collection of other platforms that are promoting work, that are promoting conversations, and offering some really good resources for any number of things that are going on in a lot of our lives right now. But as the idea for this website is that it's going to grow and be an ongoing conversation, a big part of it is submitting new work and promoting that. And David is going to hop in and talk about that.
Yes. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here and to have you all here with us. Yes, we want to invite you to submit any shows that you have been, that you know of that have been put on pause. I think something that happened, I think for me with this project, is that I think before COVID, I tended to be a bit kind of protective about sort of sharing kind of what my process was, because I don't know about you, but I tend to think that it's pretty messy sometimes, and it sort of felt like, I don't know if I want everyone to know how messy I can be in my approach. And yet, what I found about all the shows that we're featuring is that we're getting to see that there's so many different ways of approaching a project, the way that we have discovered. And it's been very freeing for me as a designer to be able to see that we're all in this together, trying to figure out how best to tell the stories in the way that we do. And so I think that there's something really freeing, really wonderful, really kind of impactful in the way that we kind of can honor the work that we do, the messiness of it. And we tend to only celebrate kind of the sort of the big trophy at the end, but the in-between is just as beautiful. And I think this is an opportunity for us to get to celebrate it and celebrate each other. So we invite you to contribute your ideas, the projects you've been working on that may have been put on pause. We'd love to see it. We'd love to celebrate you, and we'd love to celebrate everyone involved who has had to take this time to hold for design. So thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. Very wonderfully said, David. So here is the part of the evening where we do that, beautiful design reveal where we say, hey, designers, can you all turn on your video? We're going to invite you on for the meet and greet. Yay. So what we're going to do now is sort of like take the form of a more traditional meet and greet. For those of you, if you are not involved in theater, what that really means is when the team gets together and just introduces themselves, talks about who they are, what they do on the production, and some of their concepts for the show itself. But we're here in a virtual space working on this project called Hold, Design for Empty Rooms. And we are designers from, various backgrounds and productions and locations and identities. And the prompt that we have asked all of our Hold contributing designers to think about and offer up in their introduction is, how would you design the future of storytelling or theater? And a very brief context on that is that when we started this project, we were just beginning a global pandemic in the United States. Now we are in the middle of this righteous uprising that is forcing everybody to look very specifically about where we as a field and where we as humans and where we as designers are inside of all of that. So it helps us to reflect back differently, but also look forward in a very specific way. So as we are all designers, as we are all world builders, and our whole joy and profession is designing and imagining a future for us all to inhabit, or the future of a show, what better way to kick off this project, I think. So how this is going to go, we're going to introduce ourselves, and everybody will say their names, their pronouns, their locations, their disciplines, and then answer our prompt. And we'll go through the whole team first, and then pass it off. So when you're done, you can call on the next person to go. And I guess I'll go first, as I have been, to model that a little bit. So again, my name is Kate Freer. I use she, her pronouns. I am zooming in again from Lenape-Koheng, the ancestral homelands of Lenape. I am a projection, multimedia designer, teacher, documentary filmmaker. If I were to design the future of storytelling, it would be one in which we were all in deep reciprocal conversation with each other, where we were trying to lift everybody up, where there were no hierarchies, where we would lean into our differences, where we would be very clear about transparency of wage, transparency of everything, how decisions are getting made, and being having some deep analysis of our own social locations, especially in relationship to each other and the projects that we're working on. So I hope for a future in which we can be very much inside of that with each other and supporting each other inside of that, where we can make all the messy mistakes and know that we will grow stronger because of it. And I will then, I'm going to pass it to Deb.
I had a feeling you're going to do that. It's like, brace yourself now. Hey, Deb Sivany. I am zooming in from Tacoma Park, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., which is on Piscataway lands. I use she, her pronouns. And I am a costume and scenic designer. And what else? If I were to look at changing the future of theater and storytelling in like 2 minutes, I would, what I really want to see in the future is taking the word multidisciplinary and really, really meaning it. You know, the idea that like right now we call multidisciplinary, it's like, oh yeah, I'm a set and costume designer and I'm like multidisciplinary. But I'm also a writer and I know other people who have dance and music experience, you know, so I like want to take all of those different disciplines, everything from, you know, graphic novel making to live drawing to design to music to dance to filmmaking, get them all into one space and find a way for everyone just to be able to contribute in ways that feel really free, where no one's feeling censored, where you can actually just create and devise in new and wonderful ways. You know, we keep talking about the sort of equitable future. And I think that it's not only about race and class and all of the things that we're trying to pull apart and burn down so we can build things back up now, but it's also so much about discipline and taking away the hierarchy of director, designer, and you know, things being in levels. So I really hope that we can level that playing field so that designers really have a true and equal voice in the room. So I'm gonna pass it to Alex.
Hey, I'm Alex Vescocac, he, him pronouns, projection designer, experimental filmmaker, huckster of sorts. I'm zooming in from Truro, Mass, ancestral land of the Wampanoag. And, you know, it's been such an interesting time to think about what comes next in this business and look at sort of where we're coming from. And I just really hope that we, as we go forward, think about expanding the ways that we can disperse our work with technology, without technology, and that maybe that kind of leads to enhancing audience engagement, teaching audiences, encouraging audiences to engage with theater that takes place outside the institution, and that can really spur more work and just, you know, keep theater available in as many ways as possible. So passing it on to Mel.
Hi, I'm Mel Ung, she, her, hers, and I'm zooming in from Honolulu, Hawaii. I believe the ancestral lands of the Kanaka Oiwi. And what I'm imagining and hoping for the future, I really am hoping that we can create from abundance, and not just in resources, but also from the mindset of abundance. I really feel that often in theater, we really operate in a scarcity mindset, in terms of time, in terms of kindness towards each other sometimes, in terms of courage. And that's just something that I've been thinking about a lot. It's just, what if we shifted that to coming from a place of abundance? The other thing too that I'd really like to imagine for all of us is also creating and working from a place of deep self-love. Because I believe that if we have that, then that allows us to really give love to each of the people we're working with. So that's me. I will pass it on to Edward.
Hi there. Edward, set and projection designer, he, him. I'm currently in Michigan, in Ottawa, Chippewa, ancestral land. I wanted a second to give a big shout out to Kate for really organizing all this. My hope for the future of theater is about sustainability. First, when we come back for purely financial reasons, we'll be using fewer resources, but I hope that we get to work towards pivoting more towards being people-centered, and shifting stuff from materials to labor, and really lifting up the theater artists and labor as we come back. That's my hope. I will pass it to Masha.
Hello, my name is Masha Tsimring. I use she, her pronouns. I am zooming in from Los Angeles, ancestral lands of the Chumash and Tongva. And I'm a lighting designer mostly. Sometimes I sneak in a little bit of set design. I think my hopes speak a lot to what other folks have already mentioned. I would love in the future for us to recognize that all theater is devised theater, and that nothing is a given. And to that end, I'm hoping that roles can be blurrier, that we can work more slowly and thoughtfully. And I also think that especially transparency around decision making and transparency in all the ways is integral to us growing together as a community. I think that's become very clear over the time that we've had to reflect. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums me up. Do we have anybody left on our end? That Jane, I'm passing it to Jane.
Hey, thank you, Masha. So Jane Shaw, she, her, hers. I'm zooming in from the place I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas, home of the Kaw, Osage, Kickapoo, and Sioux nations. It's actually Haskell Indian Junior College I grew up with in this town. It's a very present community. So there's so many things you guys have already brought up. I'll just say on the hierarchy, sort of breaking down the hierarchy front, this watching as a sound designer, it's been fun to watch all the visual designers arrange this website, and watching you all put those documents in different orders, have different things lead, be divided by discipline, then mess up the disciplines. I just see all that information, even on a show that I worked on, say the Doll's House, what that's on there, Doll's House Part 2 with Collette, who's here. Watching those materials rub up against each other in different ways was really interesting. And so I definitely hope for when we return that we remember those lessons of breaking down that hierarchy. And I've also been watching Hamilton, maybe with many other people, because I do think we just realized that last show that we did in early March might have been our last show. And I don't think that many of us recognized that that was a moment that might be your last show for another year or longer. And so, you know, that push to sort of risk more with every production is there. But also, I think a lesson from this time has been to care for the whole human, which Mel also mentioned, and to care in a light way. So you're somehow more deeply engaging with people, but we're also respecting and how they are in this space and time. And I hope that we remember those lessons going forward. Best of luck to all of us. So David, I'm going to pass it on to David. Is that correct?
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is David Israel Reynoso, he, him, his pronouns. I am in what's known as San Diego, California, which is the Kimie Nation ancestral lands. And I function as a set and costume designer within theater. And you may hear my kids playing downstairs. I think when I imagine kind of the future of storytelling in theater, I think the idea of being able to move forward without fear. I think too often we define what we think a success is within what theater looks like. And because of it, we tend to think we either measure up to that or we don't. And I think taking that first step toward our designs sometimes can be so terrifying because we have this idea of what is successful. And so I'd love to break that and to be able to have permission to make a big mess, as I was saying before. So yeah, that's what I have to say. And here are my kids now. Anyway, great to be here. And pass it back to Kate, or do we invite our Howards and friends?
I think we're going to shift and start going by our participant list. Hello, friend. Kids and pets are definitely welcome here. I'm just going to go through and we'll start. Next will be Apollo.
Hi, everybody. My name is Apollo Mark Weaver. I'm a set designer. Can everyone hear me? I'm sorry, I have a weird little pop-up.
Yes,
no?
You are fine.
Oh, great, wonderful. I'm so sorry. My name is Apollo Mark Weaver. He, him, his. I'm a set designer, and I am coming in from Rochester, New York, which is Haudenosaunee territory. The thing I've been thinking about a lot is that we have no greater tool for learning and embracing empathy than storytelling. Like, I think that is what storytelling is at its core. It is sort of hearing and taking in the story of someone else or some other people. And I think that often we fail to mirror that in our own process. And so I hope that the future of storytelling looks bigger, looks broader, welcomes more people in from all angles, like to our design teams, to our casts, to our audiences, because I think we're in a time when we need to learn, to be more empathetic as a society. So that's what I hope.
And then Ben, you are up next.
Hello. My name's Ben Sheff, he, him. I'm a sound designer and composer, and I'm calling in from Greensboro, Vermont, on Abenaki land. And I think the future I'd like to see has already been said in a couple of different ways, probably more eloquently than I would phrase it. But for me, I would just love to see a version of our rehearsal process where we have artistic equity in the room, where we can be an equal part of what's going on with the cast, where we can all kind of come together as our own individuals to form this greater thing that goes on to put on the show, and that we can really all get our hands all the way in on the process and do something that's bigger than all of us together. Yeah, that's what I hope.
Collette, you are next.
Hi, My name is Collette Pollard, she, her, hers. I am right now in my studio in Chicago, which is the traditional homelands of the Council of Three Fires, the Potawatomi, the Ottawa, and the Ojibwe nations. And I also want to recognize the Menominee and Ho-Chunk nations who, along with many indigenous people, call the Chicagoland area their home, both past, present, future. I'm a scenic designer and associate professor at UIC, and it's so wonderful and inspiring to hear all these folks that I'm just meeting a lot of for the first time today talk about how they would design the future of storytelling and theater. And I can't agree more with everything that's been said. So what came to me originally right away was collaboratively. You know, I'm not a studio artist. I'm not someone who works by myself. I work with a group of people. And so when I look at this group of people, I'm thinking like, this is, you know, working with a group of people like this is how we're going to change storytelling and theater. A diverse group of people that bring diverse perspectives, trusting the process, having the time to trust one another, saying yes and to all the ideas here and beyond. And then just that one step at a time, one piece at a time, and all of a sudden you're there. So that's, yeah. Those are my thoughts on that.
Hi, can you hear me? I'm Hunter Kazarowski. I am a costume designer, sometimes writer, sometimes puppeteer, sometimes illustrator. I use he, him pronouns. I am in Newton, Massachusetts, where I am quarantining with my sister, and where I have just found is the property of the Nonantum people, which I'm not sure I would have looked up. So I'm thankful for having the reminder to look that up. I'm actually in a weird place, which is that I'm about to embark upon doing a show, which is something that is sort of baffling to me and very exciting. I have first rehearsal a week from today for a show. And so I've been thinking a lot about kind of, you know, we designed this show, we did all the designs for this show several months ago, we canceled the show, and then we got approval through equity after many, many months of negotiations with the theater. So we're kind of experimenting with how this will work, how COVID theater can work, and I'm kind of excited and very nervous. And you know, I sort of ricochet back and forth between this is a very exciting thing and this might be a terrible idea that we look back on in 3 months and say, why did we think we could do that? But, you know, so sort of design for the future, I'm looking at in sort of 1 month from now future, which is maybe a little less philosophical than most of the people who are taking this prompt. But I mean, I do agree with a lot of what people have been saying about sort of breaking down the hierarchy of who is sort of in charge of making these choices and all of that, which I think is the way I think of it as a longer term sort of conversation. Whereas right now what I'm battling with is this design that we already made pre-COVID and now executing that design during COVID. And what does it mean and how do we, I don't know, I'm finding the urge to acknowledge more where we are instead of saying we're just pretending that people aren't socially distanced. We're just pretending they don't have masks on when they're not singing. We're just pretending that, you know, all of these things are normal. Whereas I have this urge to say, well, what does that mean for this piece of theater that we are creating right now? What does it mean for the world we are in, right? And how do we create a narrative out of all of those realities as opposed to just saying, don't look at this or ignore it, which is kind of the place we're in because we designed it so long ago and we're moving forward with those designs. Sorry, that was long-winded, but that's, you know, things that I'm thinking of right now and things that I'm actively every day as I'm working on this design negotiating with before, you know, having socially distanced fittings a week from today. So hopefully it all works out. I'll keep everyone posted.
Wow, socially distant fittings in a week. I can't even imagine. Okay, all right. Hi, I'm Liz Atkinson, she, her pronouns. I'm zooming in from Philadelphia, the home of the Lenape. I'm a sound designer, composer, and dramaturg, like all of us are on this call. And that's one of the things that I hope for in the future of theater, is acknowledgement that everyone that works on the show, from the director down to the wardrobe person backstage helping the costume changes, is actually a dramaturg. And that's part of what we bring to the table. Going to popcorn real quick through a couple of other things that I hope for in the future of theater. Sustainability. I think that some theaters are doing that, but I think we can go a lot further in thinking about sustainability. I hope for more diversity, especially in the field of sound design. Sound design is exceedingly white male dominated, and it would be great to see that mixed up a little bit. And I hope for the erasure of, at times there can be a bit of a bro culture with sound design. I really want that to go away. And as far as the content of theater, I want that, it's been touched on lightly previously, that that through the medium of storytelling, that the learning that can happen, especially about current social issues, and to have then plays that bring forward social issues, that they invite a conversation afterwards with the audience. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marissa Wolfe. I'm just gonna, oh yeah, here I am. Hi, I'm Marissa Wolfe. I am zooming in from Portland, Oregon. I use she, her pronouns. Portland, Oregon, where the ancestral tribes have been, among many, the Cowlitz, the Clackamas, and the Molalla. And today, Portland's Native communities are 70,000 people strong, descended from over 360 tribes, both local and distant. It's a joy to be with everyone. I am a director, and I'm here for the Howard's End conversation afterwards. I'm also an artistic director, and so my answer to this question right now would be, it is an honor to sit in a room with designers. I want to amplify what Mel said, to abundance. Yes, yes, to abundance, from now until forever. And I also feel that as the American theater rebuilds from the ashes that we are in, all of this is possible. And I know many people on this call also wear producer hats, but I would say from my producer hat, I think all of this is possible and must be done. Thank you for including me.
Hi, I'm Mikiko Suzuki McAdams. I am a set designer, and I'm from, I'm zooming in from Manhattan. It's Lenape, and she, her, hers. The future theater. I'm just looking forward to have people around, and then like try to. I really hope like everybody can come back to theater. But like I'm looking for the situation of like sitting at the tech table and then looking around, and I'm not the only person of color, and that's what I hope for in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Lee, she, her, hers, zooming in from the ancestral lands of the Lenape and the Canarsie, also known as Brooklyn. I'm a costume designer, and so many people have touched beautifully on the things that I wanted to say about what I hope for the future of storytelling. So I'll keep it short and sweet, in that the main thing that came to mind when I was reflecting on this prompt was a hope for deeper and juicier collaborations with each other. I hope that more of us find a way into the room earlier, and that we're a little slower to put on our individual hats, that we feel free to engage each other in deep conversations about the work before we start making decisions about the work, and that those conversations continue and multiply and expand, and are full of risk and new things. So that's me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarita Fellows. I'm a costume designer, and I am zooming in from Brooklyn, also the Lenape land. And wow, everybody has said such amazing, beautiful things for the future of theater. And so eloquently, I kind of agree with everything. And from what Hunter had said in terms of the practical, the realities as a costume designer of how to keep people safe coming out of this time of trauma. But what I would say or add to this conversation about what I hope for the future is this idea about listening, and listening to what people need and what people have to work through, and responding to that, and to be an advocate for that as a theater or a storyteller, and how to, from the actors that I work with to the audience to like my fellow collaborators, is how do I actually listen better and move the storytelling more gracefully in that way. So yeah, thank you. I'm very excited to be here with these amazing group of people.
Hi, I'm Yana Biryukova. I am a projection designer. I'm currently in Brooklyn, which is the Lenape ancestral land, she, her, hers. I guess I always have a lot to say about how I think theater could be better. But I think, I mean, everything that you already said is incredible, and I completely agree. I think my problem with American theater has always been that it often chooses spectacle over substance, and I want theater that fully reflects the world that we live in, and not distracts from it with all its beauty and ugliness, and especially the ugliness. So I want theater to be more inclusive and more socially relevant to the world that we live in. And I also think that American theater rarely tells stories of the world outside of the US, and I think it could really benefit from telling less American-centric stories too, to just understand our world better. So yeah, very excited to be here with all of you. Thank you.
Yana, I love that. That was awesome. I'm Zach Blane. I am a lighting designer, dramaturg. I like to say I'm a dramaturgical storyteller who sort of acts within the medium of light. And lately I've been making some no-churn strawberry ice cream, which has been really awesome and grounding in this world in which we live, where we have no time for anything but what we think is important, which is our career, which is not. And I'm sheltering on Long Island in Massapequa, my childhood home, which is the land of the Massapequans. And I'm interested in a future where process over product is important, where we sort of come from a dream place and an art forward place. I really am interested in work-life balance. Mental health is important to me. Social justice and equality and intention over impact is really like a place I'd love to be living in. As far as the work, I really think that we need to, I would love to transition the work to work that's more challenging, less adaptations, more stories that America is not similar. America is not used to hearing or seeing on the American stage, that I think can give perspective to Americans about the whole world, which then would give them an insight to who we are as Americans by understanding the rest of the world versus American-centric. I'm really interested in Black joy and large-bodied joy and queer joy. I think it's, we need to recenter some stuff here. I really am interested in work that holds a mirror to ourselves and to our guests, which is the audience, for a place of healing and community, and to help educate and push the needle and really be an example for humanity and be influencers in the best way. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you all for sharing that. It was almost like we're in a process together for this. It's just so many sparks that happen inside of this, and just a lot of joy as well. Want to say that, like, all of these people inject a lot of joy in this process for me, but in work in general. So we're going to take a brief pause to sort of pivot and set up for our conversation with the creative team of Howard's End. So thank you again to all of the stewards of the space and the contributing designers, and we'll just take one moment before we begin our conversation. Okay, here we are. So this is part of the Howard's End creative team, and so thrilled that you all have given time to join us tonight. Deb and I are sort of going to be loosely facilitating, but I know that we don't need to say very much. There, it seems from what we've heard about this process, there is a lot of conversation. So I guess where to start is, I guess, where you stopped. Can you talk a little bit about where you were in process before everything sort of came to a pause? I will send it. Why don't I send it to Sarita?
Thank you. So just as a reminder, I'm the costume designer for Howard's End. And wow, as I was thinking about this process and where we ended, I had a lot of nostalgia and like some tears came up, but I pulled up my project, and where we stopped, I was about to head to Massachusetts, and I was packing to then fly out to Portland. So I had everything, including swatches that Marissa hasn't seen yet, ready to go to bring to the shop to start picking fabrics and fabrications for the project. We were literally weeks, maybe a week away from our first round of fittings. The show was designed, the sketches were in, the research was in, the shop had started cutting mock-ups. We had just made this great breakthrough with one of our sort of mystical characters, Mrs. Wilcox, which was very exciting, and we were very pumped to like try and start working out what that was and what that journey of that character was. So that's really like where everything kind of like took a pause. Was at that point. We had our shopping list ready to go. We were in full swing of production. So should I pass it?
Yeah, I can jump in. First, I wanted to mention our awesome scenic designer who couldn't be here this evening, Kimie Nishikawa. You can see her beautiful work on the website and on her website. And we were in lighting land, my land. I was about 90% done with the plot. So it was pretty much there. We were still like figuring out a couple questions here and there. And I had just come off a crazy cruise ship with Kate. But this was, we were about to, a few weeks away from tech, I feel like. So we were at that point where we had gathered all of our tools and we had a whole, or at least I know Kimie and I had a whole lot of questions that we needed to be in the room with all of our tools to figure out. But yeah, I'm gonna toss it to Elishaba, who just joined us. Maybe Elishaba, you could tell us who you are, where you are, etc.
Hi, I'm Elishaba Itu. I was the composer for Howard's End. What were the other questions? I'm so sorry.
Where are you? Oh, and then the prompt we asked everybody else during the meet and greet that maybe you want to slip in somewhere is what you imagine, what you hope, if you could design the future of storytelling in theater, what would you hope for?
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm in New York. I'm in my baby's room. To redesign theater. I've been thinking about this all day. So I've been working a lot, even before everything happened, I've been working quite a bit in the world of podcasts and radio. It had been my side hustle, and right now it is my main hustle. And I've been thinking over the past few weeks, I've been in these meetings for audio projects where I am the set designer, I am the lighting designer, I am the costume designer, I am the everything. And when we come back to theater, how do we reimagine the hierarchy of design? There have been too many projects where I'm brought in last. And that makes me, I'll do it, but it makes me sad. I wish I could have been there from the ground up. Howard's End was such a beautiful process, and I mourn it for many reasons. But the big one is that, Marissa brought us in, like, just from the beginning. That doesn't happen with all theater processes. I'd like to come back to a theater where equity looks like many things, but I'm a bit tired of the design hierarchy as it is right now. So the question was like, what were we doing when the show was canceled? Where were we? So what date was the show canceled? Was it March 15th, 17th?
Yeah, I think I called you guys on, we shut down our theater on like the 12th or 13th, and I feel like I called you by the 14th or 15th, being like, I don't know.
Yeah. So at that time I was a few days away from my due date. Baby happened a little late, so I was very preoccupied with that. But also when I wasn't packing my hospital bag, I was working on music for our show. I tend to, do kind of the bones of the music before we go into rehearsal, and rehearsal is where things really come to life for me. So I was really looking forward to anticipating rehearsals starting so I could just keep developing what this was. Ben and I had had several meetings at this point. We had Google Docs galore where we just broke down the show for ourselves, what it could sound like, what music might want to happen at this moment, where sound and music might want to be married together. Yeah, I think that's where we were. And then, yeah, I had this music and I would play it for myself.
That feels like a
I was like, that's a good segue to Ben.
Exactly.
All right, fair enough.
Like one.
I didn't want to assume. No, yeah, so Alicia and I had really been trying to go in with maybe a little more structure, knowing the ultimate situation that we were going to be in. But both of us generally like to go in with a lot of flexibility. But we were trying to make sure that we were both, locked in into what we were trying to do. And then by the time we found out it wasn't going to happen, I had submitted sound paperwork the day before, of course, and we were just starting to suss through, some of the fun little details about trying to hide some speakers around the stage and all that good stuff. I was brought into the process a good bit later than most of the folks here. So it was, which is always exciting because there's a lot to catch up on. It can be fairly intimidating too, because you want to jump in with everyone, but you also don't want to step on any toes or open any old discussions that were sealed already. Yeah, that's kind of where we were.
I can cap it. I miss you guys so much. It's so awesome to see your faces. Let's do all the plays together. Yeah, I mean, this like all design teams that are awesome, this was an awesome design team, and we had the beautiful fortune of going through a workshop process together. So the designers came in and saw that workshop. And then we had one of those, those delicious things that don't always get to happen in person, but those delicious moments of spreading all the images on the table and talking for hours and emptying the coffee pot. So there was, for me, it felt like there was such a richness in the texture and liveliness of the play that as Carolyn Hewitt, the adapter, and our incredible team of 4 actors were bringing to life this world premiere, the designer, it did feel to me like it was so sort of wrapped up tightly with the journey of how the world was going to live on stage. Yes, so that's, and it was, yeah, March was brutal, and every month's been brutal since, but here we are.
It's such an interesting thing when you're looking at a process sort of in medias res, and it sounds like you all had a process where everyone is able to come in at like a very similar time, which is a beautiful and unfortunately kind of uncommon thing. As a costume designer, there have been many processes where I come in and the set's like completely designed and just handed to me. It's like, you will make this work, make your colors work, accommodate. Lighting designers come in, they're like, well, here's the whole set, and like you don't really get any input. So I'm really heartened to hear about this process where it sounds like you had a really sort of beautiful, holistic time together, which, yeah, that's a lot to mourn when a process feels, so good and from the heart. I'm really curious about, like, so there's that beautiful moment in tech where like everybody's in the room and everything's coalescing, and like, even if you're not there in person, I think, Alicia, you're very preoccupied these days, but sending Ben in there and knowing how tight your relationship is, that you didn't have that time in the room. So I guess, like, in finding out what are your processes like, or what did you want to see upon arriving in the room together? You know, like what do you feel is sort of lacking because you didn't have that time together? If that makes sense. There's so much excitement about creating together, and when you don't have that, there's a stutter.
I think what was sort of speaking to your question, Deb, and a little bit to what Marissa was saying, I think what was exciting about this process also is that we all came on and the script wasn't done, which is really exciting, which is actually, even though we all do new plays all the time, that's not quite often the case. And I do feel like in our conversations with each other and with you, Marissa, I feel like we did discover some things together that really affected the script, which is, and not just in a, oh, right, okay, so this is nighttime, you know, sort of way, which is exciting. And just like really thinking about when we read the text, like that we leaned into this kind of mysticalness that like really came through, and how do we sort of push that. Sort of related to that, I know in terms of set and lighting world, there was a lot, especially in Act 2, which in this case happened to be the upstage part of the set, which was really related to the natural world of Howard's End, the literal place in the play. And there were just a lot of experiments that Kimie and I were excited about running in the space, both in terms of there was a painted scrim, and behind that there was a space, and then behind that space there was hay, and then behind that space we wanted to have water, we couldn't have water, we put in mylar, but we didn't know exactly which angles of light on the mylar would make what things on the cyc that was behind all of that. So we had all of these layers of depth, like literal and metaphorical depth, that we were excited about seeing how they played together, how the materials and the light played together. Could you even see anything through that painted scrim? We don't know, but we think so. But yeah, so there was a lot of like, we know a lot is going to happen back there, and we're going to just like pepper in all of our thoughts of what it could be, how we can bring nature into that space, and then we'll see.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in as well. So I think we were a week away from rehearsal actually starting. And for me, I was very excited to include the actors and to bring the actors into our process. What was great about the team that I got to work with is how flexible and courageous like everybody was, including our set designer. And just with our 4 actors, they had to play something like 20 characters. So I had to literally plot with Marissa many hours of how we thought these transitions between characters would work, and all the tricks that, from coming out of pockets to coming out of benches to coming out of the true, you know, like where, and then even who gets to leave stage and who doesn't, because we had this idea that everyone stays on stage the whole time, so except for maybe 2 moments. So that was a very exciting thing to look forward to going into, in terms of just discovery, like the next level of discovery that always happens in rehearsal. So I think that answers your question or the prompt, Deb. But
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's also part of what we were like really, or I was really looking forward to.
I know for this show, I was brought on as sound designer composer, and then I got pregnant, and it just quickly, I don't know, I had a conversation with Marissa and the head of production, Liang, about that schedule. It was just going to be probably a little too tough to be in tech with a 3-week-old across the country. And Ben was brought on because we have a really good working relationship together. We've done 3 shows together now, Ben?
Yep.
Yeah, and he's just someone I really like, I really trust. And I personally wasn't interested in Ben coming in and being like the assistant who puts my sound design out there and I'm not there at all. I think to be a sound designer, you need to be in the room. I am pretty strict about that. It feels really icky to not be in the room and call it your sound design. So that we just got to a point where it was like, I think Ben should be the sound designer and I think I should be the composer. So the thing is, so there's this quote, I think it's Elvis Costello who says it, talking about music is like dancing about architecture. It's just like, you can't do it. We can sit in meetings and like talk about what this world sounds like, what the music might sound like, but I need to like be in the rehearsal room. And in this version, like, yeah, I'd probably like Zoom or Skype in a little bit. There'd be conversations. But I was excited about having Ben there to just kind of give me some feedback. It's exciting that Ben is also a musician composer. We have a shared-ish language. But yeah, a lot of my work was going to be happening in rehearsals and actually when they were in tech. So it's sad. I mourn the loss of that. Yeah.
But we were kind of ahead of the curve there, Alicia and Ben. You all were going to do this whole, like, Ben was going to like make the magic happen. And then also, like, if we were like, that transition's not working with the sound, like the gorgeous composed sound there doesn't actually fit for what we need now. And Ben was going to, let the composer know. And then and you and your baby were going to make some new magic. I like that you all were interestingly like ready and down to use technology as a tool for your partnership.
Like from the beginning, we were just, it was like, technology is how we're going to do this. I've been in a situation like this where I did compose from afar and it did not work out so well. And I had 100% faith that it was going to work out with Ben because Ben is someone I just know really well and I trust so much. But yeah, we were set up. Ben, like, that Google Doc was pretty dope.
I think that to sort of jump away, I guess, from the actual theater part of being in the room, the thing that I'm mourning the most was it's so often in theater that we all hunker down into a theater for tech and we just live and breathe the room we're in, and we don't talk to each other about who we are and about what's going on in our worlds outside of this theater that we're in. And to me, there is absolutely nothing that like brings life to a rehearsal room, especially during tech, than someone, bringing their kid to visit. And we all can stop and like be humans for a minute and acknowledge each other and the time that we're taking to do what we're doing and sort of bring that intention back with us. And I was really looking forward to being all in the room with you, with Alicia, but remotely, and Alicia's baby. I thought that was going to be a really wonderful thing for all of us, and I'm really sad it didn't time out that way.
I have I've gone back and back and back to Lorraine Hansberry in these last 4 months. She's a source of deep inspiration for me, and I thought maybe I could share a quote that I was going to read at our meet and greet that has become even more present and prevalent for me now. And it relates to Howard's End. Howard's End is a play that it has ghosts in it. It's a memory play. It's about a matrilineal line. It's about the women's relationship to the earth and this gorgeous tree. And so Hansberry offers this. The poets have been right in all these centuries, darling. Even in its astounding imperfections, this earth of ours is magnificent. But oh, this human race. I can hear the sounds you must be uttering in response to this last remark, but this is the way I feel right now. I tell you, there is much to hurt and astound the innocent heart in this world. Much, much, much. A couple of days I didn't want to do anything but build a treehouse and forget it. You know what I mean? There are times when you are sure that the peace in symphonies and grass and light and mountains is not to be found in this life. And honey, that is a desperate feeling. That's a little Hansberry for us, that it has both the, a sense of awe of life itself and a sense of sorrow, desperation. And I feel like Hansberry captures theater so beautifully too, in the sense of presence and essence. And yeah, I'll toss it back to the group.
Yeah, I think Howard's End is so strange. It's such a strange piece. I think because you look at it on the surface and you're like, why are we doing this sort of stuffy bodice play, play now? But I have been thinking about it a lot as we move through this strange time, because I feel like it's such an interest. It uses the use of the sort of natural world, supernatural ghost. It's like you can't even like really define it or put your finger on it, what's sort of in that world, and then brings the very, very human ideas of class and capitalism and certainly gender roles and like the strictures of society, and like pits them against each other in a way that you wouldn't expect from a work that's sort of dressed up this way. And so I think that's the exciting thing about putting this piece in the theater, is that I think you can lean into all of that more than perhaps in the novel or in the movie or what have you. Like you can really dig into all that and see how it speaks to us in this particular moment. Yeah, and which changes literally day to day, which is exciting.
Masha, I'm so glad that you brought that up. The design process is so heavy in dramaturgy and imagining, and as you said, that you were in this new adaptation, and all like in constant conversation from very early, and sort of sparking each other throughout by conversations and introducing concepts. And I'm so curious about this particular sort of supernatural and natural element. And you had said that there was a new discovery about that. And I'd love if folks would talk about that a little bit, and also like, how do you communicate that information through your design? Because a lot of that, it might be in the text, but it's elevated and amplified through the design. And how are you seeing that sort of like woven through the various fields?
All right, I'll go. I'll jump in. So I feel like we're talking about Mrs. Wilcox and her magical ghostly self. This sort of matriarch of the show, who actually becomes a ghost fairly quickly in the beginning of the show, was an interesting challenge to think about and contemplate. And it was through the reading that we discovered, or the writer discovered, that it might be interesting, the writer and Marissa discovered that it might be interesting to share the role amongst all four actors. So then for me as a costume designer, I did a lot of deep thinking of what does that mean? And Mrs. Wilcox is very much connected to Howard's End and the tree. So I knew that she had to be magical and she had to be mystical. And there was a part of me, like, when you get that note from a producer or director and they're like, just make her disappear magically, and then the costume designer looks at the lighting designer and is like, can you do that? So I came up with this idea of a magical garment, which is based in like a shape of the period, but that it could break apart into four to be shared amongst each of the actors. Part of that was like for practical reasons, because if we had one garment that everybody had to share as Mrs. Wilcox, I knew that we were going to lose track of this garment and that it would become a nightmare. So I was like, okay, we definitely need multiples. And then I was like, well, if we're going to do multiples, why not just go with it and make it a thing? So when it's together, it's the whole human being of her that we see at the beginning. And then when she evaporates into a ghost, we can see the melt of this woman shared between each of the actors, and then therefore how she propels the story forward and how she sort of conjures what happens as things go through. And I was excited to see how that magic would then translate in the set, in the lights, in the sound. So that was one of the pieces that we were like pushing to have mock-ups in rehearsal like ASAP, so we could really discover what this thing actually meant. And it's something that I still am very excited about, because it was so rooted in some of our early research and our early conversations, and then to see it just get tracked all the way through to the end was going to be really delicious to see fulfilled. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add to that, or
Yeah, it was so awesome.
Okay.
It was really gorgeous, and the process by which we got there, I love your description of like everyone looking around and being like, "Are you going to solve that?" But it was a very organic journey to that, and also so much around research images. I mean, so many conversations as a group around research images and what was inspiring us, and you know, kind of what was really energizing us. And then Sarita, you kind of took that information and created this gorgeous concept.
Yeah.
I know Alicia and I had been fairly on the same page about how to sort of build that world of sound and music. But it is really cool to sort of, from the order of operations of an idea like that, we sort of posit what we might do with it, but we won't actually know for sure until we get to see what happens in the room. And those discoveries are always, you know, so exciting. And we had been playing a lot into this idea of the tree being sort of a part of that character, but because the tree is so omnipresent in the set, and both very excited about Kimie's design is just so brilliant, and the way that tree just juts up into the heavens and you never get to see the end of it. That meant that tree could be absolutely as huge as we wanted to make it over the course of the show. So it was a really cool way to sort of assert a very physical presence for a ghost on stage that we were very much looking forward to seeing how that and the cast and Sarita's work all got to interact together.
I just wanted to show sort of an image of the model. Let's see if I can make it happen. Yes, here it is. Just so everyone can see what we're talking about. I think, yeah, something that we have been talking about a lot is that there's those layers upstage beyond that painted countryside image that I spoke about before, but also even obviously within the room, there's this like period specific room that is also maybe a contemporary museum that is also has a giant tree in the middle of it. And I think Mrs. Wilcox and this idea of our sort of matrilineal natural selves can be sort of can shine through how we're using this space. And I feel like the space is actually really flexible in terms of, are people with the tree? Are people pretending the tree isn't there? Are people, you know, there's this whole section in the play of people writing letters to each other. And so this idea of distance and how we relate to each other and where people are in the space when that's happening, and how much of that is coming through some of these natural elements, etc., while people are stuck in their little rooms in their cities. It was exciting to play with. Okay, I'm taking it away.
Anyone else have any thoughts that they want to add to that before I sort of throw us into the next topic? I love this idea of sharing research and actually seeing how that came to fruition in the set, but also thinking about, like, my brain is like exploding because like it's a new play, so I do not know the script and I sort of know the story, but like seeing that tree as, you know, both a real and a beautiful metaphorical space, and how that must have manifested itself out of research, like how these worlds sort of crashed together. How did each of you, upon seeing that research and then sharing your own research, start to coalesce an idea? Like, did it begin with individual members of the team? Did Marissa come in with things? How did that work between all of you?
I mean, I can speak to it a little bit. I think what's really fun about working with Marissa as a designer director team is that she comes in with visual research, and it's usually very not, here's what the room is supposed to look like. It's absolutely sort of what artists are speaking to me now as I read the script, and which, so it's like a very good brain puzzle, I think, for the rest of us to figure out and decipher. And I think in response to that, I mean, yeah, I feel like most of us brought in, I mean, I think Kimie and Sarita had the, like, definitely the main load. But I think all of us were sort of looking around for images and videos and sounds and things that were speaking to us throughout. And there was definitely bouncing back and forth. I very much remember at some point Kimie had brought in pretty early on this idea of benches around trees. That's just a common thing in cities specifically, which is fun because this play, a lot of it takes place in a city versus the country. And I remember at the same time there was some march or protest or something, I don't remember, but I was at City Hall in New York, or just outside of City Hall at the subway stop, and there are all of these trees with benches around them, and I remember like taking many photos and sending them to her and be like, here they are, they're real.
I do want to give a really special second shout out to Kimie Nishikawa and just her her incredible vision and her work, which Masha just shared on this show. Hopefully you've caught her work before, and her associate Yushen Chen, who is also just brilliant. And yes, so just shout out. And then and process-wise, just to say too, I mean, this is an interesting thing. It also, I think, want to acknowledge, like, in terms of like theater's budget size has a lot to do with how often we're in the room in person together in the before times, and we'll see what this means for us in the vaccine times. But when I was working with Crowded Fire Theater as the artistic director, which is an indie new play company in San Francisco, and that's where Masha and I began our collaboration many years ago. Because we were, because of the size of Crowded Fire, the focus was always working with all local Bay Area designers and actors, right? So I had the great privilege of feeling how normal that was to be constantly in coffee shop dialogue with one another. And the regional theater model of hopefully supporting designers in one's own community, but also working with designers in all different communities, I think that the idea of presence then becomes so crucial and difficult, because those conversations they can happen in many different ways, of course, but we know how special it is to sit not only at a table together, but to sit in the space together. Just to breathe in the space together. And so we were able to have, as a team that's spread out in a lot of different cities, we were able to have that time at the New Works Festival, and then a later time together in New York. And yeah, I think just and then all of the interstitial conversations between there, where people were moving their ideas forward, but that touch point becomes so crucial. Also because I don't think a director can ever possibly know how all the pieces will affect each other. We do not know. So we need, everyone needs to talk.
Yeah, go ahead, Alicia.
No. I was actually gonna talk about like I really appreciated, Sarita, your research. I find that like Masha and Kimie were putting beautiful things in, but there's something, I just loved your research. I am finding more and more, I will like write music while looking at the costume designer's folder. There's something about the costume designer's folder that really speaks to me. It feels, I don't know, I'm drawing a lot of inspiration from costume designers, and your folder was amazing. I was just looking through a few pictures. I squirreled away. I looked at an old email conversation that Masha and I had, where it was like a picture of a very strange girl with a cat. And I was just looking at it being like, and that's Masha right now. And so yeah, I just wanted to like shout out like your research in particular. And I love when the research is just so accessible to everyone. I think we had a Dropbox folder, right? We didn't have a Google Drive folder, Dropbox. Like whatever the way is of sharing it, I love that it's there, it's accessible, and that at any moment I can just kind of pop through and be like, right, that's that picture that Kimie posted, right? That's that thing that Masha was saying that relates to this. And actually, I'm gonna send a link here. This is, see if it shows up. After like looking at all this research, we talked. The thing that I like to do is I like to look at all the things while putting together like a Spotify playlist. And I just, it's not necessarily, it's not things that are going to make it into the show. It's just the feeling of, like that quote, like we can't really, talking about music can get so, but I can try and make it a tactile thing as quickly as possible. And this is the thing that I do as quickly as possible. I make this playlist that especially the director and I can just start ping-ponging ideas off of each other. And so from there, I did start making the first thing, and it wanted to be, after looking at everything, it wanted to be visceral. It didn't want to be, I think Howard Zen's like, yeah, you could make it a stuffy bodice play, but it felt more than that. It felt like, these women breaking free from some real patriarchal bullshit. And it was like, well, let's get some drums and guitar in there. And what I love about Marissa is that she was like, fuck yeah. So yeah, it started becoming a pretty like visceral, like drums heavy kind of sound. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I could pay the compliment right back to you, Alicia. What was really awesome about this team and just how we were sharing research is there didn't feel like there was ownership over anything. And from that very first meeting, Marissa, that you were able to bring us all together to actually meet and be with each other, which I think is something that we're all mourning right now in times of COVID, is that we miss the community of the collaboration, that it just made it so easy to immediately message each other and be like, hey, I heard this, or hey, I saw this, and get excited to keep working and moving and telling the story together, even though we were in like different places. Masha, I think you were in like Russia or something like that. Like we were in all sorts of crazy places. And I remember, Alicia, about you being so excited about sending the music, and it was so great to get that and feel that people are working alongside of you, even though we weren't like in the room together. So
like going back to that thing I said at the beginning, like the hierarchy of design, this is a process where I didn't feel that. I feel like in a lot of processes, like the set designer rules and there we go. And like, I don't know, like I think Marissa fostered an environment that, yeah, we could all just reach out to each other. And I didn't feel any point that I was upsetting the balance of things. Like if I had an idea, like I throw it out there. If Masha has an idea, she's throwing it out there, and we're considering them equally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, interrupted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Masha.
I was gonna say that, yeah, I feel like it's, what am I saying? That Kimie is especially, I feel like, good at this, or maybe just naturally inclined, I don't know. But because the first time we did a real full production together was also with Marissa. We did a production of Pride and Prejudice. And we didn't know each other that well. Like we didn't have a full-on established whatever collaboration. And she called me to talk about where we're putting lights in the set. And which seems, I know, very normal to do, but it doesn't, again, just usually by the timing of how people are brought onto the project, it doesn't always happen, or often the lighting designer reaches out, which is fine. I mean, it's our job to be like, okay, can I sneak something in here? Can I sneak something in there? But I was just like, oh, you're asking me. Okay, interesting. And so, of course, then doing this project after that, yeah, it was we're like constantly pondering where we're tucking things in and how things are functioning together. And it is, yeah, it's very non-hierarchical, which is nice.
Yeah. And I wanted to speak a little bit to the smashing of the ideas of the rural or the countryside and the urban world, because that felt like it came pretty organically. There was a conversation that I'm going to, I hadn't really planned to talk about this, but I will, where I saw the casting and I knew that we were going to use the casting from the, or I had a good idea that we were using the casting from the reading as part of the real show. And one of our actors is visually African-American. And then we had three white presenting, I know one is not, people. And so I had a conversation pretty early on about like what the impact of that was in the play Howard's End, which takes place in England, turn of the century, etc. And so it became pretty clear to me that if I was going to be honest about the human beings on the stage, that I and also just how it's written, that we are playing with the actors as different characters, and that we're kind of showing the tricks of the show to the audience, that that I could let go of some of the notions of how do I even say this? Like, not period correctness, but that we could bring a modern element into it, that and actually like start to point some fingers, or like try to say without saying some things about like cultural, like what do we see here on stage, who is presented here on stage. So that was something else that I was like really excited to look at in the room with this huge tree with the color of the set, and like with everybody, with all my collaborators there, to like continue that discussion. And what I loved about the set design, and I think what would have ended up being the whole design in general, is that it would have felt actually very modern, in its own way, in its own great, unique way, even though we were being very like conscious of period. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Sarita, thank you so much for bringing that up. I think that's so true. And I think it was, that was a really important part of all of our conversations. And definitely was playing out in terms of Ben and Alicia's collaboration as well, in terms of that, that wonderful thing of like a nod to the period, because that is when Forster, when Forster's writing, and it matters, but why is it relevant now, and how is it relevant now? And I also really appreciate what you're saying too, because the conversation, even in the times that we had opportunities to connect with the actors over the workshop period and building up to the production, that conversation around people of color in England in the 1770s and accumulated wealth, and structures in which there's a visibility of a rising wealth among particularly like North African students who were sent, wealthy students who were sent to England, and Jamaican immigrants, and so allowing the conversation to feel both always in conversation with, you so thoughtfully put it, always in conversation with what does this representation mean to us right now in every scene, and what are the ways in which we can allow ourselves to look at a full portrait of history, and allow that to be present for us as well. And I just love what you say about the full human, and that's what makes you an awesome costume designer.
Yeah, thank you both so much for bringing that up. I think it is one of the things about making work in general, and also designing specifically, is that we don't make work in a vacuum. We are not making period pieces in the period that they were written. We're making them in the present day when they are being presented. So I'm curious about, are there any other like moments of taking the period and smashing it with the present? How did that play out with the sound? I know that you hinted a little bit at that, Marissa. Alicia, Ben, could you guys talk about that a little bit?
I know from music, like yes, drums, guitar with a nod to the era. That was the big thing for me, and it wasn't to totally make it one thing and not the other. It was, for me, the most important thing is the feeling of, and maybe the feeling of is, this is not necessarily the show, but maybe the feeling of is getting into more like hip hop, or getting more into, I don't know, I'm gonna throw something like reggaeton or something, but I don't know. This felt very. It felt very like I don't know. Like girl punk rock. I have to go back to like my old research, but it felt very woman forward. Yeah.
And I think from a sound standpoint, because so much of what Alicia was going to be able to do with that stylistic choice, and how much of that was going to sort of fall into transitional moments, that the best thing that I could do in order to support that, the strongest gesture that we could make together, would be to highlight that. So just in terms of facilitating that one idea, I would have been approaching it by taking sort of the naturalistic sounds that we were going to be using more in the real world scenes, and sort of pushing the magic, the ghostliness up into those transitional moments, so that we could really set the stage for them.
Oh, I just remembered, Ben, weren't we interested in doing the house having a pulse to it?
Yeah, that was a through line that's written into the script, and that was something.
Right.
That was something that we were trying to track through the show, and that was going to be a really cool handoff that we absolutely had not figured out how we were going to execute by the time.
Yeah, because I remember now, we were still in a back and forth, like, is it like a low, like a kick drum, something,
right.
something? Is it something more of sound world? That was going to be fun to figure out. Oh, I'm remembering some things now. Oh,
Right.
no.
I think we had both been hoping that, yeah, and then we'll seamlessly transition from your kick drum sound, it'll become the heart, and then everything's just going to work out perfectly, and someone else will program it. But, you know, like you do sometimes. But yeah, that was going to be cool.
That was going to be cool.
Yeah, I think some of the modernity idea came through this whole both the museum gallery aspect of the set and lighting design, right? These like can lights that are in the ceiling, as well as the abstraction of the more natural world elements, right? There's the giant tree, there's all of the stuff upstage past this like painted idea of the countryside, right? That's something that's going into more elemental, and behind all of that is just like a plane is a cyc, right? So it's just color space. And kind of having that color and breakup of the room ability, I think, is inherently throws us into sort of contemporary space and into contemporary art spaces. And I think that was giving certainly Kimie and I a lot of freedom in terms of, yeah, when do we treat the room like a room, and then when can we completely break that apart and go, because I feel like there's also a lot of character interiority throughout this piece, and how that is connected to the natural world. Like, how can a person, you know, sit by that tree and be footlit through sneaky things you can't see and go into a different color space while someone is sitting in a chair thinking that they're in a regular old house, you know? And so pitting those two, kind of society versus what's going on in somebody's mind, I think inherently trying to visualize those two things at the same time is pretty contemporary.
So I think we're starting to chat through like things of contemporary ideas and fusions of contemporary ideas. And so I don't know, we've got about 10 minutes left. Something to think about, like, this process sounds amazing, and I'm actually really jealous. And I'm glad that you all had this experience. What now? Like, you may not get a chance to revisit this. I hope you do. I mean, I don't know what the future may hold for bringing this team back together and finishing out this show, but what are you going to take forward from this experience into the next realm? We're not going back to what we had before, really, in any shape or form. I think people may try. That's not going to work. I think the more we are in this pandemic, the more that the world is just changing. We're not going back. So can I just ask you, each of you, like, what are you going to take forward into your theater life, but also like your own life, and how you want to collaborate forward and what you want to do with your art moving forward? And you can take it in any order you want.
I'll just say, I don't know what the future holds for PCS, because, you know, we're looking so many years out right now, and I'm really hoping to program this play with this team, and it will be a joyful day when that is true. So just to say that, and the question, what will we take forward? You know, I was texting Chip Miller, who's the Associate Artistic Director at PCS, an amazing director and artist leader. And I was saying to him just the other day, can you imagine what it will feel like when we're back and we're doing like opening night, like curtain pitch, and like we're watching the show? I said, I think that we're going to be like squeezing each other's hands and knees and like weeping from like the beginning, the middle, and the end of those opening nights in the season yet to come. And I can't wait for that. I can't wait. And I think the weeping, Deb, I think will be partly because we've landed on a new shore. I don't think it will be the land from which we came. It will be a new shore, and I think it may be more bountiful. Yeah.
I think something that's been sort of helpful in trying to do virtual theater, or even all the other talking that we're all and thinking that we're all doing right now, is that this idea of defined roles and hierarchies has had to fall away because the form is different. And so, right, like what is lighting for Zoom theater? It's, I don't know. But it's been an opportunity to think about what I find interesting, at least within the parameters of this box, and what I can contribute as a human that's related to lighting and not. Like I've always been interested in timing and how light moves. And so in this world, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna think about transitions a lot. I mean, that's what I do in before times, but I can do that here in a way like that isn't necessarily like under the label of lighting design. But think about how we move from one state to another state. And so I'm looking forward to the groundwork that's being laid now about that sort of role melding, and I'm hoping that we can take that into the future a little bit.
It's actually like such a weirdly complicated question that was partly answered from our earlier discussion point from today. There's so many wonderful things that people said that I hold true, and I think is beautiful and was a start of truth for Howard's End. And then like the country exploded, and I would hold on to that our humanity as artists stays center, and that we will hopefully in terms of the hierarchy, in terms of the labor, in terms of just breathing with each other again, that we will treasure that more and be present with each other more. Yeah, I hate to use the word hope because I don't want it to seem like inactive, that there's like activeness in like creating the theater we want and the future we want, despite the mistakes that we've had. So I would take the collaboration process that I had with this team and not necessarily look to recreate it, but to hold on to it, that this is the new bar and it has to be better from here. Like it has to get better from this point. So that's what I would push forward.
This is also, I didn't jump in right away because this is it is a complicated question. I don't have answers for myself right now. I also, our show stopped, everything stopped, and then I had a baby and everything shifted. And then the past like month and a bit has been like particularly brutal within this moment in history. Just to be a person of color in this country right now, this month has been so brutal. For this show, if and when we come back to it, first off, I'm gonna cry a lot when I see everybody in real physical space. And then second, I would be so excited to just sit down and re-examine this play. After everything we've been through, I think it's a redesign. I think there's a lot of redesign to talk about. That's what I'd be really excited about. And as for, the state of American theater, I think everything's about to be different. I hope so. I'm excited. I'm excited to figure out, yeah, what American theater looks like moving forward.
Just to echo some of what has been said, I am excited to take forward the dynamic that this team had, and just to know that it can be achieved, and to not feel the need to listen to people who say that it can't be, and who people who genuinely don't think that you can have, you know, a wholehearted theater process with a group of people like you can get sometimes, and to try and just leave some of that cynicism behind.
Yes, to all of that. Thank you all so much. Some of the things that I've heard throughout this, other than just the sheer joy of collaboration and creating together, is just that this process and this work and these people together are excited about centering humans, centering questions and conversations, and just uplifting that if this piece does happen, how it goes forward is going to be different, because we're going to be in a different world, because so much of what you were talking about before was that it existed in the world that it was in, so it can't be necessarily frozen and just put in a new place. And the excitement to be in space and actively breathe together and re-examine together. So I do hope that for all of us, that we take these seeds of discoveries that we're examining from our past and bring them forward to new shores, like you said so beautifully, Marissa. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm gonna hand it over to Deb.
Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone. I love that, you know, even though we're here and we're all talking about the work and we're centered on the work, it really comes down to the people, the collaboration and the people in the room. And really that true moment of being able to breathe together within virtual space, and hopefully eventually in real space again, which I think I will also weep and hug everybody with fervor. And when I see all of you after meeting hordes and hordes of new people and new designers and hopefully future collaborators and seeing old friends, it's I'm really moved. I'm deeply moved by being in a space and sharing space with all of you. So thank you to the Howard's End team. Thank you for to all the featured designers on the website. Thank you to the team of Hold. What a great couple months. And thank you to all of you who are watching on Facebook and YouTube. And we hope that if you were on a team whose work also ended, that you will jump onto that website, get your design team back together, reminisce, send us your stuff, and let us help you celebrate all of the joys of your collaborations too. So yeah, everybody, have a great night.